Let's talk about feedback. Feedback is a critical leverage point that can dramatically change the course of our FE exam preparation. And we know feedback is a leverage point, and a leverage point is a point of power. Because we know one tiny change of how we perceive feedback and what we do about it can produce big changes. Intuitively, we know this. Students intuitively know how they perceive feedback and what they do about it can produce big changes. But a lot of the times, we either perceive feedback the wrong way or take the wrong actions, producing unintended results. In this video, we're going to break down exactly what we mean by feedback, and we're going to break down something we call feedback mechanisms and how we can use these feedback mechanisms to make adjustments in our studying to ensure that we're prepared as best as possible before our exam date. There's no better way to explain this other than an example. So we're going to look at this in terms of our understanding of the FE exam concepts, understanding of the material, understanding of practice problems, and how our understanding is helping us achieve our goal. There's always that goal. Keep in mind, this is a general example just to introduce you to this type of thought process. It's a big picture example. You can do this for a variety of things. It could be understanding. It could be your problem solving skills. Let's say your time management, your exam taking skills, your self-confidence. Could be the time you have to study, the energy. There's a lot of systems we can analyze using the same process, but I suggest keeping it simple. Maybe keep it to the big three that relate to each other, that really connect to each other. There's going to be relationships between certain big three systems that you have, and you have to know them. So this depends on the student, their life conditions, their environment, their daily schedule, work schedule, family life. It's going to differ from student to student. So let's look at a basic example to give you the big picture idea. So let's start with understanding. So we're going to do that and look at our understanding of the concepts, and we're going to put that in a box like this. So note, what I'm going to label this as understanding, and I want to say at the same time, this could be, let's say, your skills. So I'll just put that as well, your problem solving skills, problem solving abilities, and so on. That's what we're looking at, and this right there we call the state. This is the state. So with that state, we know what we're going to do is say, okay, I can either increase my understanding or decrease it. So what I'm going to do is denote that by arrows. And if you're in my civil course or maybe environmental engineer, this is also applicable to mechanical, basically any engineering discipline. This is really like a water budget in water resources, like a lake or that river water budget, accumulation and reduction in accumulation, increase in storage, change in storage. It's the same key concept. But with those, we usually just analyze as inflow, outflow. Now we're looking at it with feedback as well. We're introducing that key concept. It's all about feedback. So we know we can add something here. We call this the input to increase our understanding. Note, the input is increasing the understanding. It's going to increase it. The output is going to do the opposite. The output will decrease our understanding, bring it down. Input increases the understanding, output decreases the understanding. Very important. Now with that said, we know we have an idea. Okay, I have an understanding of the concepts, but compared to what? Compared to what? How are we even defining this? Relative to what? These skills are compared to what? What is my goal? What is your goal? We need a goal, and this goal is very important. A lot of students neglect this and proceed with doing practice problems, developing skills with no clear goal in sight. What's the ultimate goal? We need to define that. So what we have to do is compare everything here to a goal. So what I'm going to do is put that here as my goal. And this is really what we desire. This is the desired understanding, our desired state of understanding. Now with the goal, this is very important to define well. It has to be well defined, it has to be realistic, and it has to be somewhat short term. You can't have a goal that's so long term, that's going to leave you demotivated. You can't really grab that, right? So luckily for the FE exam and exam taken, that goal is well defined. It's already set by the rules by the NCES, by how we perform on the exam. So we know the rules of the game. That goal should be well defined for this FE exam. So that shouldn't be hard. So examples of this goal, let's say my goal is to, I'm going to use a number goal. The goal can differ. Let's say is to get a 70%. At least of 70% on the direct hub quizzes. So we know we have quizzes in the direct hub course, at least a 70% on these quizzes. And maybe on the practice exams as well. That's my goal. No, that's a number goal. Goals don't have to be just numbers. Goals can be something like confidence. So a goal might be a level of confidence that I want to be at where I'm not getting stuck too much. I'm not making silly mistakes. And so on. That is part of confidence. So let's say it relates to my confidence where I'm not getting stuck, making mistakes, struggling a lot with certain concepts, practice problems, and so on. So it could be a number goal. That's going to be one that we should have at least 70%. And that's usually good enough to pass this FE exam. As of today, as of now, usually that is definitely good enough to pass this FE exam. And if you get that on the real exam, very likely you will hit that passing score. So that's our goal. That's what we desire. We need to have that, and it has to be well defined. Note, there's a lot of different that go into this. What we desire, make sure your goal is well defined. Now, with that said, it's a goal that relates to our understanding. What we will do now is measure our understanding. We will look at how our understanding is measured. So the way we will denote this is denote an arrow like that, and we're going to call this our actual understanding. This is what we really have in terms of our understanding. So this is the actual. Let me label that as actual understanding. Now with that said, that's the actual. We have a goal. This is what we desire. So actual understanding, what we desire. And the actual understanding has to be perceived well. So it takes a lot of self-reflection to know what's actually going on. This is what we measure. So we know for quizzes in the course and the practice exams you do, the practice problems, that feedback you get immediately from the results and the solutions is the actual measurement, right? So it's very simple in that case. But now when we talk about self-confidence, we have to be well attuned to how we feel, and we have to be completely honest. That's the actual understanding. So we have the actual, we have the goal, and let's extend an arrow from the goal here. And again, let's extend one more arrow. Now we have a very important point here. This is the point of difference. A fancy term is a point of discrepancy, but we'll just call it difference. So this is a difference right here, or a point of discrepancy between our actual understanding and the goal. There will be a difference. So let's say our actual understanding by the results that we got, comparing that to 70%, we got a 55% on the score. And we know our goal is to have a 70% on one of those quizzes. Let's say I'm doing the statics quiz. So this is 55%, this is 75. There's a difference between that, right? We want that difference to go down to 0, approximately 0. Of course, it won't be perfect. You want the difference to go down close to 0. That's our goal. If you're above 0 a little bit, that's okay. Just good enough. So that's what we want to do and bring this difference back to close to 0. So we have an actual understanding, our goal, and we have that discrepancy. This is very important. We'll even denote it by the delta sign to keep that mathematics in here, the difference between the goal and the actual understanding. Now with that said, with that difference, we're going to do some things. And this is the crucial part to remember. The input-output process. So the input process and output process, we need to break those down. The input process is what we do to increase our understanding. Think of this as the inflow. What we do. Let's say we're watching videos. We're watching the expert work through the videos. Maybe we're doing practice problems. We're practicing through a practice portal. We're reading through conceptual notes. We're doing hands-on problems, doing quizzes, practice exams. Typically, that's going to be the routine that we do for the input. And when we do this, our understanding will go up if we do it the right way. Note, we can do the input process where we can watch videos passively. This input, we might think, yes, it's increasing our understanding a lot. It's not, because it's a passive input. It's not really substantial. It's not a high yield type of input inflow that will increase our understanding, and which in turn increases our actual, and with the goal of meeting the desired goal. So be careful with the input. It doesn't mean anything you input doesn't necessarily mean your understanding will go up. And this also relates to this key idea. The more does not mean the better. Thousands of practice problems done without quality practice, done in a distracted environment. You're doing a lot of these, but the quality isn't there. You're still doing input, but that understanding is not really increasing a lot. It's going to be stable and it's not going up, which in turn doesn't increase our actual measured understanding. That's the input. Now, something also we tend to forget, the output. We can do things that's an output that's actually reducing our understanding. The output will always reduce the state of the system, the stock, which is our understanding. So we know the output examples of reducing understanding: forgetting to review, not reviewing. That would be an output. And if we do not review, if we do not take the action, we know our understanding goes down. Another output could be taking action by not taking breaks. That will reduce our understanding. Or maybe an output is doing practice problems, a lot of practice problems, when we're really tired. We didn't take breaks. We're taking action. It's an output process that will reduce our understanding. No, we can do things. We can do things that reduce our understanding. That's something we have to be mindful of. So now with that said, let's go back to the difference. This part is very important. That difference or discrepancy between the actual and our goal, we're going to make adjustments. So what we will do now is denote this arrow and go back to the input. And this is when feedback comes into play, and go back to here to the output. So now with the difference, I notice now, okay, I have something I can measure, that discrepancy. I'm going to adjust the input. So now what I can do, my goal is to input high quality yield study techniques, high quality practice problems, high quality practice videos where I'm not just passively watching them. I'm looking at the video, learning the concepts, but also applying what I learned. In this case, we're applying what we learned. That's the input, and that will lead to development of our understanding. So based on that, I'm going to use that feedback between these, based on that difference, to produce and add high quality input behaviors, actions, types of practice, study techniques, and so on. That right there is something we call a feedback loop. So this literally is a feedback loop, and in fact, in this case, it's a positive feedback loop that's going to get reinforced. So if we have a difference, we're going to make sure that we're meeting that difference to hit that, to make it 0, to meet our desired goal, make the actual understanding and the goal. The difference between those is 0. So we can go here, look at the difference. Are we meeting that 70% or the confidence? If not, we're going to add some input. High quality learning techniques, high quality practice problems, hands-on practice, reading material, learning the concepts, and the list goes on. So we do that with the input, and that's going to be one feedback loop. Then at the same time, we look at the output. That difference is still connected to the output. Do not discount that. Usually we only focus on the input, but sometimes we're doing something, an output, taking action that's going to reduce our understanding. let's say we're doing a lot of practice problems, but at the same time, we're taking action that's reducing our understanding by doing these, by memorizing steps, just memorizing solutions. That right there, that output process, if it's greater than the input process, it's going to reduce our understanding, and that reduces our actual understanding. And then there's a big difference between the goal and the actual understanding. So what we want to do in this particular case, just focusing on understanding, is look at this feedback loop here, the difference and the output, and we want to reduce the output here. We want to reduce it. Let's put a negative sign. Reduce more of the bad stuff, the things that are not really increasing our understanding. And this right there is what we mean by feedback. The feedback really that's going on is measuring that difference between the actual and desired goal. And with that difference, we make adjustments to the input. And that input has to be high quality to increase our understanding. Then that increases the actual. Then we're closer to the desired goal. Then the difference is closer to zero. That's a good thing. But then remember, the output can decrease our understanding. Any output, any outflow decreases the understanding. So we have to be aware of this. We have to be aware of this, measure that difference. And if we recognize this, if I can adjust that output, and then that will in turn not decrease my understanding, I'm closer to the actual understanding, or I have an actual understanding that's closer to the goal that's desired. So the difference is closer to zero. And then when it's zero, I'm meeting my goal for that topic or for that specific concept and that understanding of the concept. This is what we mean. So be aware of this. In this case, we have a positive feedback loop. This one is a negative feedback loop. This one is trying to bring the understanding back to a level where the difference is close to zero. This one right here is positive because it's reinforcing. It's trying to increase the understanding, which in turn increases the actual understanding to make the difference equal approximately to zero. It won't be exactly zero. Doing just good enough, being just close enough is the goal. That's one example for understanding or our problem-solving skills. No, you can connect this to other critical systems, other leverage points. So the real leverage points in this case is what we do here, right? What we do here as well. What we do with the flows, the input and the output, the actions we take, the study techniques, the study habits. This part is the most important. Focusing on just understanding isn't important. The state here is not important because that state is affected by the actions that we take, the input and output. Keep that in mind. And as we said, we can connect this to a different system. So let's say in this case, I have a system and the state that I'm measuring, this is very obvious, energy. So the energy I have to study, the capacity I have to study. So this is the energy I have, and this also relates to the time. So energy, recall, we said there's an input, output. So I'm going to go input, I'm going to go output. The energy can increase, and it increases by the input. How do you increase your energy? To study, let's say, after work. Okay, eating right is an obvious one. Taking a walk, exercising, meditation, praying, whatever you do, whatever works for you. So this is on an individual basis. There's ways that you can increase your energy. Sleep is a big one as well. So that right there are actions we can take to ensure that we have the energy to study, which relates to the understanding as well. Now the output, there's certain things that we tend to forget about that we're doing that are reducing our energy. So maybe that's sleeping late. That's an action, that's a behavior, that's an output, an outflow that we're doing to decrease our energy. Maybe we're staying up too late at night. Maybe we're not eating right. Maybe we're not taking walks, exercising, those types of things. And a big one of this is the wrong environment from the start, a distracted environment, and maybe the wrong support system around you. That would be an output that right there decreases our energy. So now it's the same key concept. We have the actual energy. We have a goal. So now we have a desired goal. This is what we desire to have as energy. which this goal, if you really think about it, this goal depends on how much we can input right there to enhance our learning, understanding, our problem solving skills. So what we can even do is go back and relate this goal to the input, because it does depend on how much we can input, and that goal also does depend on this difference that we have between understanding. So it's a system connected to another system. Things are related. We shouldn't be thinking in just isolation, especially if we relate it to critical elements that we want to focus on, or critical leverage points. Understanding, our studying, our skills will absolutely depend on the energy we have to study. So that's our desired goal for, in this case, no energy. So we know we measure this, we get the actual, we get the goal, and the actual measuring energy can be tough in this case. This is how you feel. So you have to be well in tune with yourself. How do you feel when you're studying? Are you just dozing off? Are you having a really tough time getting started? What's the reason for that? So there's an actual measure. Then we know we can denote delta as the difference, the discrepancy between the actual and the goal desired. And that goal desired note depends on everything that's happening in the understanding state that we're focused on. And with that difference, we can make adjustments. So note, these are the feedback loops that we have. We're going to make the crucial adjustments to the input and output. Those are the most important parts. So with that said, we know the input, as we said, we need to do more of something, take more action, more behavior that increases our energy. So maybe a classic one I have with students is not studying after work, but studying very early in the morning. That gives them, and they have a lot of energy to do that very early in the morning. So they're going to do that and enhance their energy, meet the actual, measure the actual, meet the goal, and that goal will in turn affect the input that they do here, which enhances or increases their understanding. Actual understanding goes up, and the difference between the goal desired for the big goal desired for the real understanding, that's getting a score, the performance, self-confidence, and so on, is met. So that's what we're doing and making the adjustments. So we know that's going to be one. So we want to do more of this. This is going to be a positive feedback loop that we have. And we know here the output is doing less of the, let's call them bad behaviors that reduce our energy. So we want to decrease this to actually, in this case, decrease that to keep our energy at a level, the actual energy at a level that's in line with the desired energy that we need to enhance, again, relating it back to our understanding. So that's another state we can measure. You can put more. You can connect that to the time. So maybe that's one last one you want to measure. It could be just about anything. Family time. You want to be very specific. So yours can be 1, 2, 3, 4. Don't make it too complex. If you make it too complex, it's going to go all over the place. You're trying to develop a model, a steady model, a structure, a system for yourself to ensure that you know these feedback mechanisms and you know where you need to make adjustments in that input and output flows.